You're listening to Rocket Night.
Hi, Cherise. This is Lester Chambers of the legendary Chambers Brothers. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for caring for musicians and letting the whole entire world know we rock at night.
Are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights live again. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. Not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel up good. Get on down.
Well, welcome to Rock at Night. I'm speaking with Billy Bass Alford, and he's going to tell us a lot about his personal history and adventures, meeting a lot of the different blues players through the years, and et cetera, et cetera. Plus, Billy is the one who wrote our Rock at Night theme song, Get On Down. Billy, tell me about how you got started. You were about 12 years old, correct, when you first started to play music?
Yeah, even younger, maybe. I was probably about 8 when I got started. The first song I ever learned was Boom, Boom, Boom by John Lee Hooker. And Mom, before that, had taken me to see Jimmy Durante at the Texas State Fair. I was probably about 4 years old, but I remember they had a band, it's a rock band, and it was really cool. And I was just watching that drummer with that kick drum, and that's one of my youngest memories. But that got me started, and I had an older brother that he had an old silver tone guitar, and so I got in there and I learned Boom 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 by John Lee Hooker, and that's the first song I ever learned. That was in 1962. And what's cool about that, in 1974, I was in his band playing, subbing with the Coast to Coast Blues Band. We were opening up for him, and his band got delayed and couldn't make it for about a week of gigs. So our band became the Coast to Coast Blues Band, plus opening up for him. So that was full circle by the time I was like 17 or 18, I was playing with John Lee Hooker. Isn't that cool?
Wow, that's just in a short amount of time. You're working with the guy that got you started, in a sense.
Yeah, I know.
Inspired you. So you started playing the guitar first before you moved to the bass?
Well, that's what we have had. I would learn bass parts. I would play guitar parts. I mean, acoustic guitar is really my instrument. That's what I play. I play acoustic guitar. Bass, I play bass in bands. I play electric on my own stuff. But really, I'm an acoustic guitarist. That's what I consider myself to be.
Now, in the past, we've spoken that back in the 60s, when you were young, you got to meet a lot of famous blues people, and you had some incidences that were kind of scary due to the race issues of the 1960s. You want to talk about that?
Sure. I remember one of the coolest things in my life was I had an aunt and an uncle out in Midland, Texas, and I used to go out and see them. And I remember getting on the Greyhound bus, heading back home towards Dallas, and it was the week of the Martin Luther King I Had a Dream Civil Rights March, and I got on the bus, and we sang all the way to Dallas, "We Shall Overcome." And man, was I into that. That was just so awesome. I'd never seen, as all these blacks from Los Angeles and white supporters, and it was like something out of a movie, and that really ingrained in my head. I never thought about race. My family was never prejudice. My mother's best friend was a black woman, and I got in a band in Abilene, Texas, we called ourselves the Blue Soul, and we were opening up for the Drifters. I mean, we're only. I was 13 by then. I was getting older, and we would. Our drummer was 16. He had an old car with a trailer. It was a '49 Mercury with suicide doors, and we had two black singers, a male and a female, and we had a black keyboard player, and then me and the drummer, and we had another white guitarist. And so there's 3 and 3 because of the Blue Soul. And one time we went out to play a gig in, where were we? Went to Aspermont, Texas. And the kids were out there just playing for us. I mean, we were playing for them, and they were dancing. God didn't make little green apples, heard it through the grapevine. I feel good. I mean, it was all this incredible soul music. Then we'd do a little blues, a little Stormy Monday blues, and it was amazing. And then afterwards, it was a prom. And we loaded up the gear. We're leaving town, and we stopped to get something to eat at the local restaurant there on the way out of town, and we went in there, and they wouldn't serve us. And this is like probably 66, 67, something like that. And, you know, I had long hair by then. I remember that. And so did the drummer. He was from California. And back then, the worst thing he could be was black. The second worst thing he could be was a hippie, and then Hispanic. And so that was how they rated you. So we were black and hippie, and so they wouldn't serve us. And then all of a sudden, these rednecks, I mean, they were just pretty scary guys. They followed us out, and they got in their muscle cars, and they drove off. And I'm talking about those old Dodge Roadrunners and all those really fast 500 horsepower cars, and we got in the car, and then they came back around and passed us, and all the black guys in the cars started yelling, "They're gonna rock us! They're gonna rock us! They're gonna rock us!" And we're sitting there, what are they gonna do? Slow down! They said, "They're gonna rock us!" And said, "Rock us? What do you mean?" He said, "When we drive by, they're gonna take big rocks, and they're gonna just totally pound the car." Because that's what they do. And before that, it was really, I mean, it was like a lynching's what it was. Even before that, we had trouble in the parking lot, and you know, we got out of there, and it was fortunate. And but they did rock us on the way out, and that was a scary moment because those guys were serious. They wanted to kill us. They wanted to lynch us, basically, is what it was, what it amounted to. But, you know, I mean, that's where I grew up. That was Texas in the 60s. It was kind of like the end of Easy Rider when they shot Jack Nicholson and stuff, you know?
Wow, yeah, that's pretty scary. Now, I remember that you've talked in the past with me about a concert that you went to that was after Woodstock and that you were able to play with some musicians after. You want to talk about that?
Well, the Texas International Pop Festival happened 2 weeks after Woodstock. It was almost identical lineup. Janis Joplin was there, Santana. Instead of Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. It was their first tour. I mean, it was an amazing thing. It happened 2 weeks after Woodstock, and there were other pop festivals in Denver, and there was 1 or 2 in Atlanta. So there was about 5 Woodstock events in the United States, and one happened to be in Dallas. And they had the free stage, and so they had the show, and then over by Lake Dallas where they had got to meet Uncle John Turner, and I remember I had a stick, and I was like playing on his cymbal, and he looked at me like, "Don't do that." And, well, I felt like I was 2 inches tall. But ironically, Uncle John became my mentor and super close friend, and his nephew, John Thornell, is a guy that I'm starting to work with who was influenced by Johnny Winter to play harmonica, and he's a great Austin harmonica guy, and he does other facets in the music business too. But yeah, and then right after that, I got in with this bunch of hippies from the Family Feed Store in Denton, which was the first organic food store there. And I lived upstairs in the attic, and there was this guy named Uncle Bill who took me to see this guy named Mance Lipscomb.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Mance was part of the 60s folk revival. And he was an older man in his 60s, and he had never had any kind of fame. These guys from the Library of Congress came down looking for Lightning Hopkins down in Houston. They went over to Nacogdoches, Texas. They said, "No, Lightning's not here, but listen to this guy, Mance Lipscomb." So they listened to Mance, they recorded him, and next thing you know, he's got an album out, and he's doing all the big blues and folk festivals all around the world. And Mance had a really good 10-year career, and he had written over 1,200 songs. He's considered the Texas songster, and Navasota, Texas, is considered the blues capital of Texas. Mm-hmm. Not Austin, not Dallas, but Navasota, where Mance is from. And Mance invited me down to his house. He invited a lot of young musicians down. This time I'm 15. This is 1969. And I had a 1962 Pontiac Tempest, and I hopped in that sucker, and I went and I took my acoustic guitar, and I went and I hung out with Mance Lipscomb, and I played songs with him on his front porch in Navasota, Texas. And it turns out I wasn't the only one. There have been other guys that had taken that ride too, and from what I understand, a guy named Robert Zimmerman would go down there some, and there's a couple other guys, Towns Van Dan, I believe, who's a great Texas songwriter, wrote Poncho and Lefty. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, you know, I didn't realize the impact that was going to have on me. Mance was the son of a slave, and all he ever wanted was 5 acres and a house, and that he owned. That's all he said he ever wanted out of this deal, and he got it. He passed away in about 76, but he was very influential on me, and now there's a museum there, and I've visited a couple of times, and you know, when you're going through history, you don't think about it as history until someone else tells you it is 30, 40, 50 years later. So, I mean, that's the way I kind of view it. I was real close friends with Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I knew he was a great guitar player at age 16. It was just apparent. But I never looked at him as a star, even into... I was still his friend.
Now, you met him as a teenager, correct? You guys were all teens together?
Yeah, I met him pre-teens. Actually, I think about 11 I met him. His brother was playing a gig at in a band called The Chessmen with Doyle Bramhall Sr. on drums, and Stevie was at that gig, and we kind of sussed each other up, you know, and it was in Dallas. My family's all from Oak Cliff, Texas, and same town Stevie's from. And so, you know, I just happened to be a part of Texas music, and Texas music just everybody was like us, but evidently it wasn't. We had so many unbelievably great garage bands, and we just thought this was going on all over the world, but evidently it wasn't. And, there was a scene in San Francisco, obviously, but what we did in Texas, we all moved down to Austin about 71, and Stevie, and that's where I re-hooked up with Stevie.
Well, Janis Joplin's from Texas.
What?
Janis Joplin's from Texas.
Oh, yeah. Well, Janis was there. I'd gone down and seen Janis when I was younger. She would play sometimes down at the, there's a little kind of coffee house vibe at the University of Texas there at the Student Center. And, and then I guess she was playing Threadgills. I just happened to be in there and wound up there, kind of one of my Forrest Gump moments where I just wound up in a room where Janis Joplin's singing.
That's wild.
I grew up in Cisco, Texas, all right? The guy down the street, he had a band called the Champs. They did that song Tequila.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that turns out to be Seals and Crofts. And they wrote all those great songs, Hummingbird Don't Fly Away, and Summer Breeze, and all this stuff, I mean, this is just in my hometown. I know I have another friend of mine from Crane, Texas. He grew up next door to a guy that used to practice every weekend with his band out in the backyard in the late 50s. Well, that guy's name was Roy Orbison.
Oh, my goodness.
So, it's just people.
It must be the water, the food that everybody's turns into a good musician.
I used to see this band all the time.
Huh.
They were called the Felicity at my teen club, and I'd go down in the afternoon, and I would talk with them and meet with them and hang out with them. They were really great. They were another Dallas area band, and that was Don Henley on drums. So there's all these people just around me, and
well, Eric Johnson too, correct? You
oh
grew
yeah,
up with
Eric's
him.
a good friend of mine. He really helped me out. I've done session work with him back when we were younger, and we just run into each other out in L.A. or Santa Monica or just somewhere or wherever. And I got sick a few years ago he had throat cancer, and he got me down at the Experience Hendrix tour and had everybody sign this 1997 Jimi Hendrix tribute strap, which is a really great guitar by Billy Cox, and I got the guitar player from the Doors, and then Eric signed it, and Eric Gales. It's all these great people. I had a wonderful day. Then I went through my cancer treatments, and I made it through, obviously, and I'm
all the
almost
musicians,
4 years out, and I'm cancer free.
all the musicians kind of stick together, especially when one of you are sick or down or whatever, and helping you out like that's really nice.
Well, right before Doyle Bramhall Sr. died, a friend of mine's best friend, my cousin actually, her best friend had gotten pancreatic cancer and was terminal. So, I have a friend of mine that I grew up with down in Austin playing, named Brian Wooten, who plays guitar with Trace Adkins now. He hooked me up with Trace. We got some guitars. We got Merle Haggard, and they helped me. Trace Adkins signed, and then Bill Bramhall went out of his way and got another guitar all signed, got drumsticks and CDs, and he actually had to chase down the FedEx guy, and and Doyle got that and out, and the lady we raised, just he and I alone raised $2,000 for this lady's family, which is a big deal, and then Doyle, I wound up with cancer a few months later, and then I think it was a year later, Doyle died. It's just insane. And then my good friend Mark Pollock just passed away day before yesterday, or maybe on Friday, and Friday 13th, and That was yesterday, wasn't
Yeah, it was yesterday, Friday 13th.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, 9 a.m. And he was the guitar player for Freddie King on the when Freddie King opened for Derica and the Dominoes on the Layla tour, and he was also the James Cotton's guitarist. And Mark also started the Dallas International Guitar Show, which has morphed into this huge thing. So he bought Charlie's guitars after Charlie Wirtz died, and kept it open, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, I mean, hey, I've been around some wonderful people. I've gotten to work with some of the best. Lightning Hopkins, I used to do a lot of shows with him, opening for him, and Freddie King, I've done shows with him, and John Lee Hooker, and you know, I've just had a really good career, and then I'm getting ready to do it again. I'm just going to keep going with it till they tell me I can't anymore. At some point, it becomes like your religion. It becomes such a part of you that you know, I believe in a higher power. I believe in God, and I feel when I'm playing music, it's such a gift from God, and that I am like communicating with Him, and what He gives me is flowing through me. And since I've been well off from my cancer, it's totally different now too. It's not about my ego. It's not about the money. It's about life, breathing life into myself and others around me, and that's why it's a spiritual experience.
Well,
That's how I feel about it.
it seems since you got cancer, you got this big inspiration to write a lot of blues on your resonator guitar, and how has it changed you, or is your music any different now?
Well, yeah, I've really gotten honest with who I am. I mean, I grew up hating where I was from because it was so frickin' redneck, you know? And I grew up loving the music, though. We would have a dose of country, blues, and R&B, you know, and soul. Then it morphed into soul. But I got into all these progressive bands too, from England, you know. Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, and you know, but I've always had this blues bass, and I went off doing this other stuff. Played the band in Michigan. We Straight Light. We're doing another album at some point. It was an amazing band, and kind of cross between Genesis and Yes, and so I always had that too. But after the cancer, it was like, okay, let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to the basics, you know?
Yeah, because in the 80s, you lived in the UK and you were playing kind of new wave and rock back then.
Yeah,
The genre
I
was
playing
different.
with a band called The Truth on Iris Records. But Dennis Greaves, the guy that started The Truth and all that, he has a band called 9 Below Zero, and he had a band. They were prior to The Truth, and he's put them together since that band folded. But they're still touring, you know, and that's a straight harmonica-based blues band. And I worked with an Irish band called Zerra, Zerra, O-N-E, and our drummer was Corda Marshall, who turns out to be like the president of Atlantic Records and managing director of Warner Brothers UK, and I mean, so, you know, I've met some people, worked with people that went on to be big industry people.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I mean, we toured with Peter Gabriel, you know, the Truth. We toured 6 months with Squeeze in their heyday. We did U.S. tour, you know, Orchestral Movers in the Dark. I mean, just tons of people that we either played an Irish band. I'm actually Irish, believe it or not. But you know, I had a 10-year experience in the UK, and that was amazing because I remember sitting in a pub once, and next to me was Ginger Baker, and I belonged to this club in the West End called Trance, who was owned by Jackie Collins, who wrote those books.
Oh, yeah.
Rockstar, wasn't it? And anyway, I mean, I was hanging down there with Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones, and
Oh, my goodness.
Keith Emerson was in there all the time, and Rod Stewart. I mean, but you didn't think about that. You think, oh, go, Rod Stewart, you go. I said, you got a drunk guy over there. Oh, yeah, it's Rod Stewart. I mean, it was pretty crazy. It was a lot of fun, but we did get crazy. And, I was partying too. It wasn't like I was sober. I was 3 sheets to the wind most of the time. But I got to know Lemmy from Motorhead, and his son and I, Paul Linder, got to be very close friends. This experience like that, it was just pretty amazing,
You were there during that whole punk time too, weren't you?
Yeah, it's like right about, well, back in 74, my band with Uncle John Turner, Robin Seiler, who's just an incredible guitarist from Texas, he's gone now. We were in a band called Cracker Jack, which was one of Texas' premier bands, and they had about 400 different incarnations. Even Stevie Ray Vaughan was in one. And we did some shows as Cracker Jack, and then we morphed into this other band, and we were called the Rocking Sweet Nasties. We had a lead singer by the name of Jim McCullen, who's called the Big Punk. He is from, moved out to Dallas from Phoenix. He was real good friends with Dallas Cooper, and he breathed fire. He ate fire. So we'd have this deal at the end where he'd get out and eat fire, and we were opening up for the New York Dolls.
Oh, my
We were on
God.
tour with the New York Dolls as their opening band, and then they had a drag show in between us. and I was hanging out with Johnny Thunders on the side of the stage watching the drag show, and
This is
Bill Vane,
hysterical.
and all these cats from the New York Dolls. I mean, go figure, I mean, there's another Forrest Gump moment, But
Well,
I remember
Let me ask you,
manager
Billy.
on the phone saying upstairs, because Arthur Kane, the guitar player, couldn't play because he had been stabbed by his girlfriend.
Oh, my
He
God.
got his arm, and the roadie was off stage playing with Arthur Kane, playing like he was playing bass. And I remember the British manager was in the dressing room, because we shared a dressing room, and he was on the phone getting the gear ready to take over to UK, because he was going to start a band over in the UK. And I swear to God, I think that was about the time that the Sex Pistols were getting together. So I think I heard a conversation on the telephone that morphed from the New York Dolls to all the gear going to the UK to start the Sex Pistols. So there's a link there, and then I moved over there somewhere in there. So
Oh, how funny. That is a Forrest Gump moment because,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
they
telling you.
actually, I think they consider, I mean, I don't know, they say Lou Reed, but New York Dolls are kind of like the first punk band. I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely, man.
I can,
But a lot
kind of glam.
A lot of this punk music was taken from like Sushi and the Banshees.
Yes.
Did some songs from some early Texas garage bands where these guys would put out their local 45s, and then these punk bands were getting some of this music, and then people were showing up on these guys' doors in the 80s when they were middle-aged going, what's going on here? And they go, dude, you're a star. You wrote this great punk song back in the 60s, in 1963, when you were in a garage band in Del Rio, Texas. These guys are going, huh? And it's true. I mean, it happened. So a lot of the punk scene is directly correlated and tied to the garage band scene of the Texas early to mid 60s. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
You're listening to Rock at Night.
Thanks for the intro melody. It's called Get On Down by Billy Bass Alford. Thanks.